Amer, from your point of view, where do you feel that you fit in terms of when you're working with clients? Because I think it'd be good to get, again, some kind of real life examples of what organizations are trying to do to reduce their carbon footprint and more wholly embrace digitalization.
It's a tall order. And are we ready for that? I think there are silos or spot areas where we see there's a certain developments being made in the design, in the construction, in the other building materials, but I think still a lot has to be done. How? We being ourselves a manufacturing company, we see that circular economy is the key here. And there's been study, it's been done in this, I think about 2 years ago, or sorry, 1.5 years ago by the Dubai municipality, where they said that 75 to 80% of the waste comes from building material actually. That's a very high wastage coming through. And what are we doing about it? I think it's still looking at the net zero. I was attending again conference last week. Again, we're talking the same thing. I feel that, you know, there's a lot to be done, but we are not there. We need a re-change in design thinking. We need to harness the circular economy. We need to look at the reducing the logistic long viability, and also last 2 years, especially pandemic, and as well as the current war has taught us that, you know, we are in the middle of disruption completely in the value chain, clearly. You know, you can see a lot of projects are being delayed. We are an importing nation. So we need to look at what is available locally today to provide the sustainable, viable solutions to the designers, to the developers, to the clients, to make sure that the project or the target is achieved in a certain milestone period. Is that enough? No. I think I'm also looking here also the new technology where we're talking about modular housing. What you've seen, I see a couple of colleagues who I saw them today morning. This is one part of it. Second is the 3D printing. This is also, there's a lot of noise being made around it. UAE has already built one of its model in the Warsan area, which has actually been there for almost a year now. Again, sustainable building. It has a low HVAC system, lowest by far compared to any building. It's very cool from inside. It has a local material, which is they've used locally. So I think there are spot things what you see it's happening. The case studies being managed together to make sure that this is available to the platform like here. I think that's missing. That means the communication will still there's some gaps. This is how I see it.
It's interesting you mentioned localization actually, because that seems to be an obvious area where organizations can start to push sustainability ambitions a little bit more, is looking at their supply chain and, you know, where can they turn more to the local supply chain rather than having to go international if they can avoid it. Again, is that something that you find clients are talking with you about, or that you're talking, you know, where you fit in the chain when you're talking to other people?
I think one of the things clients talk about is price. So it's a difficult one, because I think we're all going through the inflations clearly, but are we getting the same mileage out of the price? No, frankly. So what we look at internally now in Knauf, I have my technical team here, and also you can visit our stand, you'll see that we're targeting reducing the waste inside the organization. How do we reuse or recycle ourselves, our material, what we're producing? Because most of the material is imported. We have about 25% recycled material in linear paper, natural raw gypsum is available, local energy. We use our wastewater to plant the plants in our plant, in our operations. At the same time, we reduce the board waste construction. This is very key here, because our board weight was, when it started, was 9.4 kg, by the way. Today is 7.3. And we're planning further to reduce to maybe about 7. That's another 200 grams to go down. That means use the same transportation, more material at a lesser cost. So also customization is the key. I think when you look at a lot of projects, I think we are asking now the designers, architects and contractors together that let's talk openly on this design stage itself, so that, you know, we can reduce the weight at the initial stage to get a typical design. We also have BIM in our portfolio as a development of our solutions. Again, working with authorities both in Saudi and UAE, saying these designs can give access to 15,000 architects globally. That means the knowledge is sitting there. The standards have already been met. You can make a proposal online on this and use this standard solution, which are actually available locally today. So yes, it's a far cry, but I think it's doable. We need the stakeholders to be work in this direction. That means we need to embrace collaboration with all the stakeholders. Also, let's not forget the SMEs. They are the key players in this.
Startups?
SMEs are very, very important because we're still talking about manufacturers, architects, contractors, but where are the middle players who are actually, or they're moving the industry around? I think they add a lot of value chain here, but they're not being actually recognized or not being brought into the whole value chain. They should be integrated in the system.
Well, and also you mentioned a couple of things there that were very interesting, and one of them that comes up quite often is that of waste. And when I look from the outside in at the industry, it feels like actually you've got like a double job there, because it's both waste in your day-to-day operations and waste in the kind of the construction-related operations that you're trying to reduce. So now you've talked about, you've touched on a few areas that you're changing with your materials, but again, how much reuse can you achieve? Is it something that can really make a difference for what you're doing?
Internally, yes, it's achievable, but I think the external environment is a challenging one because we don't have an infrastructure ready for this to collect the waste from the sites. Like we see very good examples in the UK. They are very well organized, and we have a plant in the UK. We do collect the waste from the construction site and can be used. Can we do that here? Not yet. And I think this is one of the targets we need to look at it very closely, saying, okay, we started working on the pilot projects with the architects and the contractors. We did some exercise to Masdar. Masdar is like almost 7 years old, but I think we need to reinvent the wheel again and start targeting small-scale projects and say, yeah, is it doable in the long term or not, and maybe collect the data from this and say implement on other ongoing projects.
And again, you touched on something else there, which is it start small and build? Is it look for lots of different ideas, try them, see which work, or to try and boost what you're doing?
I think if you look at last 10 years, up to last year, we used to have mega projects in UAE. Today, we have small-scale projects. It's not vertical, it's more horizontal now. So I think today is a very great opportunity I see. If you can do that in smaller scale, then big ones, it's easy, it can be handled. We have community buildings coming through, like 100 villas here, 2,000 villas there, or 500 villas here. That's a very good example to create a sustainable environment. You see Majid Al-Fatim has done an excellent job here. You also see a solar parks building built around the same environment. You have a Baraka, which is nuclear power plant. So there are a lot of good examples existing in UAE. I think we need to focus as a contractor and as a manufacturer of drywall material into this segments where there are a lot of villas being built throughout the region. Let's say we pick up a project through a developer and work on this from A to Z.
And then what about standards? And I ask that because earlier on we were talking about the diesel generation sector, and one of the speakers commented that the regulations aren't in place at the moment to really force through better quality diesel generator, off-highway diesel generation, diesel engines, and that actually if you start to put those policies in place, it forces manufacturers to produce higher quality, which then brings down their carbon emissions. So in terms of, again, for what you're doing, are the standards there, and how are they the right standards? Are there updates that are required? What sort of role do they play for you?
I think you have two ways to look at this, embodied and operational. I think we can target the operational clearly. I think that's one of the things what we see is incoming raw material and exiting finished goods. This is still a topic to be addressed because we are sitting far away from the construction side, and that's why you see a lot of modular constructions coming through, which is great. I think we can customize the design standard-wise, in whether you talk ASTM, ENBS, or the DIN standards. We have all the solutions available locally, and this is, by the way, online as well. So you can use our spec-built software free of cost, install it in your app or in your business, and use it freely. Our team is actually providing what is called a lunch and sandwich trainings to the architects contractors today, so that they can use this software so that you can actually minimize the waste already by using this, because it helps you to do things much quicker, efficiency, and also a speed of construction. Now, when I look at the embodied side, I think this is a bigger task, to be honest. Net zero it's a tall order for everyone. We really need to add value here, to be honest. And I think we are not there. We have to think about it in longer term rather than short term. I don't want to commit some numbers or things which I'm not aware of today, but certainly this is the topic we're looking at internally, saying, yeah, how do we maximize as a family-owned business? We are a family-owned company. How do we leverage this to the end user who are also family owners of this apartments, buildings or the villas? How do you pass this to them, the knowledge, awareness, training, skills? This is what we're working on right now.
How are you seeing the demands change then? Because you just mentioned about the end user. We're moving on in a moment to talk about the end user side. So I think what do you see changing from the end user in terms of what they expect and want?
I think the end users are expecting better price, to be honest.
Well, that's always the case.
That's always the case. So what we see really in the project phase, we know we have a contractual obligations, but I think when you have this 15-20% increase in inflation, that's not been passed on to the end user. So it is actually sitting with only the stakeholders like manufacturers or maybe the dealers or maybe into a level of contractors. Is this passed on to the other final users? No, at the moment. I think this is, it's too tight. It's very stretched right now. That's where also you'll see a lot of suppliers are stopping supply to certain projects and sorry, I can't meet this because I'm actually losing money by providing this service. So I think we have to weigh the options here. How do we continue? I was just talking to the KAFD today. I mean, we as a manufacturer, we are ready to allocate 50% of the capacity to the development of the projects. No problem. We can create a backward integration of the supply chain. We have a reserves of 100,000 tons of raw material. Nobody has in the market, by the way, sitting in my yard right now. So these are very important because you control the price market then. Then you have a forecast, a visibility of the project. How are you going to go through the execution? You will help the end user to have a better price. Today, I think this is not there. Still, we need to work through this together. Again, we need stakeholders on board.